What should the 49ers do with Brock Purdy? Is he the future? Grant, what do you think? I mean, I was listening to Brian Baldinger talking about Purdy, and he's like, you know what? I don't think he's playing great, but I do think he sees the field. I still think he's pretty accurate with the football, but the Niners and Brock are not making big plays right now. They're not making explosives. The turnovers are killing them. The penalties are killing them. They've got 8 giveaways in the last month, only 1 takeaway on defense. So what do you think? Is Brock the guy long-term, or is he not?
I don't think he's proven that he's the guy long-term. So, I mean, because he's not having a great year, and that's concerning right before it's time to give him an extension. And he clearly can't really play effectively in wet conditions, which is not the biggest problem when you're a 49er, but it's an issue if in the playoffs, you're probably going to have to play a bad weather game, and he doesn't seem like he can do that effectively. So I think he's sort of in between. I think the idea that he would get a 5-year contract extension probably is out the window. I don't think he's going to be in the $50 million range anymore. Maybe I'm wrong. I think what the Niners could do, maybe partly because of all he's done for them at such a low price, but say, look, we appreciate you. Here's a 2-year extension worth $60 million or $70 million. And we think that's fair. And if you'd like more, you can always play on the final year of your contract and bet on yourself. And if you don't like that contract, we could go and offer it to someone else too. Like, I think it's really strange that Brock's having this down season while Sam Darnold's kind of going berserk over with Minnesota. Not saying that Sam Darnold is a great quarterback, but he's really doing very well. And if he's going to be in like the 2-year, $60 million a year range, then I don't see how the Niners could offer Brock anything more than that.
They're in a weird predicament because what is Brock? Well, he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and he was better than Trey Lance. And that's kind of how we got here. Mm-hmm. But is he Josh Allen? No. Is he Lamar? No. Is he Mahomes? No. And to be quite blunt about it, he has not been particularly good this year. And that's kind of a fact at this point. He has struggled this year. So, and he struggled really since that Ravens game. Now, how much of it is legitimately on Brock? How much of it is what's going on around Brock? That's really hard to know. When I watch the All 22, what stands out to me is just the entire equation is breaking down. The offensive line is not giving him a lot of time consistently. So, and it's kind of hard to predict when they will and when they won't. It's kind of random. So he's at times bailing from the pocket before he should. And at times he's under a lot of heat and has to run. So that's part of the equation that's breaking down. And then the Niners, until this game where, Buffalo plays 2 high safeties militantly and just says, hey, we'll give you the run, but you're not going up top. The Niners ran well in this last game, but how much of that was Buffalo giving up 4.9 a carry coming in? And how much of that was the Niner offensive line actually opening holes? I don't know. But they struggled to run the 2 or 3 weeks prior. The receivers don't separate. I mean, you can really see that. Ricky Pearsall was a first-round pick. He's done absolutely nothing. I mean, I know he was shot, and there's sensitivities and whatnot, but I mean, come on. The last 3 games, he's a total non-factor. 63 targets or 63 routes run and not a single catch in 3 weeks. I mean, this is your first-round draft choice. So I just kind of think that
Kyle Shanahan's been figured out a little bit. The red zone offense isn't working. I mean, it's everyone. It's not just Brock. You're absolutely right.
But it's not just Brock. So it's like, you can't go away from Brock? Do you go away from Brock and take your chances? Would Sam Darnold be better with this cast and this line? And I know he looks good in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson, but would he look good here with Ricky Pearsall? I don't know.
I don't know.
It's a tough one, but that's kind of that's the dilemma that they're at. Would you say, Grant, that you think that this is more about Brock's struggles? I mean, are the 49ers issues offensively most attributable to Brock, Kyle, the O-line, or the really slow group of receivers?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I think they all share in it. I think Kyle Shanahan's been caught up to and figured out to a degree, and I think Brock Purdy's limitations are catching up to him. And I think we saw that in the snow. Like, there's a big difference between him and Josh Allen. There's a huge difference. So I think Darnold would have played much better in that game than Brock, just because Darnold has a stronger arm. And that's kind of disconcerting because I didn't really think Darnold was that good. But if he's going for the same price as Brock Purdy next year, I don't know who I'd rather take actually at that point. And I mean, it feels like this team needs like not just a retooling around the edges. They might need a new head coach. They might need a new quarterback. They might need to trade both of them. Those two might be the guys with the most trade value on the team. Although maybe not. I mean, what is Brock even worth anymore in a trade?
I mean, it's beauty in the eye of the beholder. I mean, we know that he would be worth something because there's a lot of bad quarterbacks. But I mean, Jesse had the stats today on his Twitter. He's like, Brock ranks 21st in touchdown percentage this year amongst NFL starters, 0.3 behind the league average. He's got him 20th in the league in interception percentage, 13th in the league in yards per game, 18th in the league in completion percentage, a little bit over league average there, 14th in passer rating, 2.9 above league average there. We know the Niners don't look as good. He doesn't look as good. How much of it is his actual regression? How much of it is the league catching up to him? And how much of it is we're blaming the quarterback because the line's not good, the receivers are slow, and Shanahan's not having a very good year? I don't know. I don't know who to hold, whose feet to hold to the fire. But offensively, I think their issues offensively are not as big a deal as their defensive issues, because I think their issues offensively a lot have to do with injuries, and I think that what you see on defense, I just think their whole equation defensively is eroding. I mean, they're not good on any aspect of all three levels of the D are bad. Where the offense to me looks like similar, but you don't have Ayuk, and I don't know that you have any real deep threat. So like they're a receiving core that lacks a deep threat. So they have no speed at wide receiver. So like, I watch the all-22. I don't sit there and go, oh my God, look at that guy. He's wide freaking open. Oh my God, Brock missed that guy. He was wide freaking open. I see Niner receivers kind of locked on to the defenders a lot. So not exclusively, but a lot.
It's just disconcerting that with Brock, he's like 24, 25 years old, and he's not getting better. Maybe he'll get better down the line. But right now he's not getting better, whereas like there's these reclamation projects who are older than him around the league who are having these career renaissances. Like Darnold's one, Baker Mayfield's having the best season of his career. Geno Smith is a successful reclamation project. Jared Goff, he's over 30 years old. He's playing the best football of his career. The Rams may have given up on him too soon. Or he needed to go to Detroit to find himself. But maybe the 49ers, maybe they have to look at Brock as like, you gave us your best. I mean, you're not worth this much money. You might be breaking down a little bit with your small frame and your injuries to your throwing arm. Maybe it's time to go get not Kirk, but at least Kyle knows Sam Darnold. At least they know each other, and Darnold knows the team and the system. I think I would prefer that to Kyle drafting a quarterback. I wouldn't trust him to actually pick one.
It's a
but then again, is Sam Darnold going to fix the problems of this team? Probably not.
Well, I mean, he can't run, so he's not going to be better as far as like behind this line. At least Brock can run. I mean, we saw with Brandon Allen. You're looking at Brandon Allen last week going, run. Oh, and then you realize, oh, you can't run. You can't run at all. So the mobility, I mean, I don't know how you view mobility. I kind of view mobility as almost a must among young quarterbacks. I don't know if I want to go down a road with a quarterback like a Cousins or a Darnold or a Mac Jones. I think you got to have some movement ability at the next level. Maybe, I mean, there are exceptions, but I mean, man, Josh Allen can sure move, and Mahomes moves enough. And we know Lamar. I mean, Lamar's an excellent mover. Hurts, he moves really well. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what the answer is at quarterback. I mean, to me, I like Brock Purdy. I'm a believer in Brock Purdy, but I can see the flaws and I can see the limitations. And
I like his running better than his passing at this point.
And he's not the kind of talent that can just be like, get aboard and I'm carrying you. I mean, Josh Allen made a couple throws in that game this weekend that were like, what? Like in the snow between two defenders, a laser 25 yards down the field, defenders all hanging over him, draped all over the receiver, and he just sticks it right in there. I mean, he is a freaking amazing player. And it's tough to watch all these great quarterbacks. We're big Niner fans, and we're from here, and the Niners didn't get any of them. But I don't know who would be. So are you saying that you'd rather have Darnold than Purdy next year if it came
It
down to
depends
it?
on the price point. I mean,
If the
I
price
think it
is not,
depends what Purdy
if it's
does.
static,
Let's see what these quarterbacks do the last 5 games of the season. Like maybe Purdy finishes really strong and wins 4 of the next 5 games and wins a division. That would be huge. I'd like to see how he finishes off this season, because right now his stock is as low as it's ever been, and it's unfair to judge him right now.
well, here's the other thing too. It's like, look at some of these guys we're talking about. Sam Darnold went to Minnesota. They're really well coached. They got a really good offensive line. Then Darisaw went down, and suddenly Sam started throwing interceptions. Then they traded for Cam Robinson and kind of upgraded their offensive line. He seems like he's kind of bounced back. But you got Sam behind a good line. You got Mahomes behind the best interior line in the game. You got Philly bounced back from an ugly year this year, and a lot of it's the strength of their O-line. And then you look at Buffalo. Josh Allen was sacked fewer than any quarterback in pro football coming into that game last week with the Niners. So in some ways, I feel like this all points back to the Niners have to get serious about their O-line. And they really haven't been. They've just kind of they've only given a passing glance, even in this last year when the rest of us were like, they need to devote this entire draft to the O-line. They took Pooney, but it wasn't until the 3rd round.
So they could have taken Zach Frazier in round 1. That would have been great.
That would have been great. I was calling for that. But then also Chris Forster kind of indicated their philosophy, which is, hey, you can find game breakers in the 3rd round at receiver. You can't find that. You can find offensive linemen that can help you later, I guess. But I mean, look at your line. I mean, you're outside of this game against Buffalo, you're running into a wall on a regular basis. And Trent Williams is old, and Banks got dominated by Carl Brooks, and Brendel's the lowest rated center in the league. And, Pooney's a rookie, and McKivitz is a replacement level right tackle. I mean, you don't have a very good offensive line. Isn't that why Darnold's good? Isn't that why Baker's good? Isn't that why, some of these guys are better in these new spots because they're getting to better situations with better offensive lines?
I would say so. I mean, yes, the offensive line helps. Absolutely. The Niners don't necessarily have a good one. That would probably help. Yeah. It's helped Jared Goff. It's helped Sam Darnold. But here's one more thing. Like maybe the Niners don't get rid of Brock. Maybe they keep Brock. Maybe they don't give him an extension. But I think they're going to probably have to draft another quarterback, whether it's round 2 or round 3 or round 4. Even if they keep Brock, they got to get another quarterback on this team because they just don't know for sure. Unless, again, he just goes on a tear in the last 5 games, wins out, has great, starts to show the level of play that he was showing a year ago. If he can do that, then he'll get the money. But right now, no, they're going to have to draft a quarterback.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's a stark contrast, and I don't know if your dad has brought this up, but your dad covered the Niners in a different era, a different regime. Nobody ever cared about Steve Young's feelings. Nobody ever cared about Joe Montana's feelings. I kind of feel like there's so many people kind of tiptoeing around everybody's feelings. I don't care about anybody's feelings. Would Brock Purdy be happier with a couple backups who are no threat to ever start? Yeah, that's what you got this year.
That's what you got this year.
And Brandon
Didn't
Allen.
help.
Yeah, how's that doing for you?
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think I don't know if Brock's the long-term answer, okay? But I also don't think I want to kick him to the curb.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess and also you're going to have to pay him, whether you pay him this year, next year, whatever.
His trade value might not be that high either. I mean, if you wanted to kick him you might not even get a 1st-round pick for him. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what you'd get. I think I have a tendency to think that you probably would, but who knows? Who knows about that? But then I look at this and just go, okay, so at some point you're going to pay him. And what is he worth? I mean, I don't know what he's worth, but I mean, Tua Tagovailoa made $53 million. I think he's better than Tua Tagovailoa. Now Tua was the Miami Dolphins were horrible as soon as Tua went out. And now with him, they look much more like themselves. But I think Brock's kind of in that category, and Tua got $53 million, and I don't want to pay Brock $53 million.
Right.
So I mean that they're in a kind of a pickle here.
If that's what Brock wants to get, if that's what he thinks he can get, then I would trade him. hey man, good luck. Do that somewhere else. Or sorry, you're under contract and you need to be here and play for $900,000, and then we'll franchise tag you if we want to.
My only thing would be like, if you do bring Brock back, the room has got to be cheap and challenging. And right now, it's expensive or relatively expensive because you got a couple veterans there, and no challenge. There's no challenge to Brock's security as the starter. Like, I like Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. I kind of like Haynes King from Georgia Tech. They're both kind of pocket passers who have mobility. I kind of like Tanner Mordecai as a backup. I'd be okay going into next year with Brock as the starter, a couple guys out of the draft who I liked, and Tanner Mordecai, because you're not going to have any money and you need a cheap room, but you need some guys. You got to keep drafting. I mean, the stat that jumped out to me this week, Grant, was Colin Cowherd, who I can't stand, but he does have a good point. He's like, of the last 21 quarterbacks who've won the Super Bowl, 18 are either Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. He's not a future Hall of Famer. The Niners want to win the Super Bowl. I want to see them win the Super Bowl. It's a possibility that Brock can't get them there. I believe in him, but at this point, I think even the biggest Brock supporter has to admit there's a possibility that he's not the guy. So what do? What I would do is go forward with Brock. Don't pay him this year. Go draft a couple young quarterbacks that you like, or one, let's say, and have a young, cheap quarterback room with some young guys that you like. Coach up the position and keep drafting quarterbacks. Why? Because until you find, your future Hall of Famer, you got to be in that looking mode. You can't just sit there and be like, oh, well, we got our guy. We'll just bring in Dobbs. We'll bring in Allen. Our guy will be comfy cozy. I don't want Brock to be comfy cozy. I want him to be looking at Haynes King and Riley Leonard saying, those guys are bigger than me. Those guys are faster than me. Those guys look really good. And I need to play my ass off or I'm going to lose my starting job. And it was okay for Joe and Steve to have competition. I think Kyle needs to reintroduce the idea of competition at quarterback and not just make everybody happy.
I think people are also really nice about Brock and to Brock because he hasn't gotten paid yet. It's almost like the Niners have almost taken advantage of him, although he knew what he signed up for. But he's made about $3 million gross in his career, and he's played all these big games. I think people feel like he kind of needs to get paid retroactively, but that's not the way sports work. And he's going to get paid a lot of money one way or another. And the Niners don't have to make a sentimental mistake. I mean, they gave out money to anyone who wanted it this offseason. They were completely indiscriminate, except for Eric Armstead. But everyone else got everything they wanted, and it didn't work out for them. I think the Niners need to be much more discriminate this offseason with this contract and compare him to other guys who were available. I mean, there's other reclamation projects who aren't Sam Darnold who are available that they could get for probably like $1 million. There's other guys out there who have pedigree and traits that this guy doesn't have. Jameis Winston's available. They could go get Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, there are guys they could get for pennies.
Well, but you're not saying those guys are better than Brock. You're just
but I'm saying to add to the room.
In addition to.
Absolutely. And like, what you don't want you to do is just give out the big 5-year, $250 million contract just because. Don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been enough backsliding this year to make you want to pause, or at least to make you want to see more. I mean, come on. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know what? I think the guy's got some talent. I think the guy's got some juice, but the offense backslid.
This last season was disconcerting. We haven't seen enough.
And then, here's the other thing. The Super Bowl is usually in a warm weather spot or an indoor spot. But to get to the Super Bowl, you got to play damn good football in December and January in Philadelphia, Green Bay. Outdoor conditions, Kansas City, in the AFC. But I mean, there's any number of places that you're going to have to play that are cold weather, wet weather. Yep. And if you got a quarterback that can't handle the football, that's a problem. That is a problem.
Yeah. Look, if Larry is saying this today, it's an issue, man, because Larry has been as enthusiastic and optimistic about Brock as anyone. But Larry is also an unbiased reporter who calls it how he sees it.
I want to see.
You got to see. I mean, anyone can see it right now. It's been 13 weeks and it's not getting better. And now it's like going back to the Baltimore game. It's been like almost 40% of Brock's career. So he's going to need to either pull out of this down the stretch or this will be, he'll have to answer for this.
In a lot of ways, I feel like he's playing decently and doing the best that he can. I just don't think he's got a lot. I don't think he's got a line. I don't think he's got healthy backs. I don't think he's got fast receivers. I don't think he's got a good defense. I don't think he's got
He doesn't have a great offensive coordinator anymore. I'm sorry.
There's a special teams, there's a circus. I mean, their whole equation has bogged down, and he's the guy that we're centering on because he's on the verge of potentially being paid. But we're not trying to pretend that he is he is the end all be all as far as their issues.
No.